Hey all, Scott here from Art of the Genre, and remember, if you're watching this, please subscribe or hit notifications. That always helps us out. Today we are going to take a look at another classic TSR D&D adventure. This one is going to be for the basic set. This is X7, the War Rafts of Kron. I'll show it to you here. This was produced in 1984. It was written by Bruce Nesmith. I just did a piece on Bruce Nesmith, who did the beta principle for Gamma World. I absolutely loved that adventure. I can't say the same for this one. But nevertheless, I'm going to be going through this one today. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And it is for characters levels, I think, 7 to 12, somewhere around in there. And again, it's set in the basic system. The cover is done by none other than Larry Elmore. Take a look. Absolutely love Larry's work. I think most people probably would agree with that assessment, that they also have a fond place in their hearts for Larry's stuff. You can obviously make out a Larry piece if you're looking at armor, especially helmets. Check out the helmets on that one and see that they have these swirl marks on them, and they're kind of rounded. It's something he goes back to again and again. I was first introduced to it in the Red Box Basic set of the fighter going into his first dungeon. Take a look. And you can see that that's repeated again and again through his stuff. So that is a quick way to find an Elmore piece. This cover is nicely done. It shows a storm giant rising out of the water, which actually happens in this adventure. So that's always good. I always like to see an adventure that actually the cover takes place or has something to do with the adventure and stuff that's going on inside. So I like that. Again, 1984. Again, we're looking at the starting to slide side of TSR. And by 85, Gygax is going to be ousted around August. And then we go into the lean years before second edition starts to come in. Anyway, I'm going to go through some stuff here. The interior is done by Jeff Butler. Jeff is a weird artist for me. Sometimes I'll see his work and it's some of the best stuff I've ever seen. I absolutely love it. And sometimes it's just like, meh, I'll take it. I think the stuff in this is pretty give or take. I mean, it's good work, but there's nothing about it that just seems special or kind of sings or has a stylistic nature to it that really sets it apart. Take a look at a piece of his right here. So, I mean, you can see it's kind of just base comic booky stuff, and it's a lot of the stuff that I feel like you get into in second edition, the base second edition stuff. Anyway, I'll move into it. The maps are done by Diesel, LaForce. They're good. There are a lot of them in this, so I think you'll be happy with the maps if you're using it. And then the adventure itself we'll get into. It's a water adventure. The first couple pages are going to be introducing you as a DM in basic to a water adventure, and gives you a lot of the mechanics and so forth and so on dealing with this. Obviously, when you're dealing with water adventures, they're a bitch. They're hard to do. This one makes sure that everyone is -4, I think, to all attacks with weapons, unless they're missile weapons, which are -1. And, you know, you can't see, you know, sound travels. We've gone through all this stuff when we went through U3. The final enemy, it's just a pain, and that's one of the things that is a real drawback for water adventures, which is this one is going to be completely wrapped around that. The adventure itself is set up in 4 parts, and they go into those parts without any kind of a run through or a synopsis of what the adventure is going to be. And that's the Achilles heel of this adventure. I don't know what the hell is going on in it most of the time. It goes from one set of encounters to the next set of encounters to the next set of encounters, but it doesn't give you any kind of guidance. By the end of it, you don't even know why you're going to these places. Nothing that I could find in there told me, so I kind of had to make it up in my head, and I'll go through that. Anyway, it starts off with one of the first things that I don't like, and that is You start off in the Isle of Minrothad, or the Minrothad guilds. This is the classic gazetteer for that in basic. And I've gone through that, and it kind of gives you a little help with this. But really, the characters are brought in. They have a kind of a bad sea journey to get there. And then they're subjected over the course of a few days to a lot of tests by the guild masters to determine that they're worthy of taking on this test, or taking on this quest. And everyone else fails, so it's only the characters that are left. Okay, right there's a starting point. Characters don't like to be tested, or players typically don't like to be tested or told that they've been tested and then they passed. If you're going to put something like that in, at least make them do something. Give a little story, give a little testing, maybe put them into some faux combats, something like that. Let them show off their ability to deal with oceans or water, any of those things. Don't just say, hey, you guys passed, now we'll start you on this quest. I think that is an initial shoehorn into it that I don't like, and a lot of players don't like. And then it backs it up with, you're given a ship, you're supposed to go out and investigate the disappearances of a lot of ships in the Sea of Dread. When you do that, you're almost immediately attacked by a encounter by Tritons who are using sea termites. I've never heard of such a thing, but they're using them, and they chew up your boat and sink it, and then they leave you there to die. Okay, just right off the bat, you're going to have a problem. You're talking about, you could have 12th level characters in this. They're not going to want to lose that ship. And they're going to be pissed when they get shoehorned into being flotsam in the water and left to die by Tritons. No matter how many they kill, no matter how good your party is supposed to be, no matter how ingenious your characters are, the real onus here is to sink this vessel, no matter what they do, because you can only move on in the story if the vessel is sunk, because then once the vessel is sunk, a storm giant rises out of the sea, which we see here, although that vessel is still afloat, and then offers to take you to his castle, gives you some items, and then sends you on your way toward the next part of the adventure, which is the Triton city, underwater city of Suthus. See, people aren't going to like that. They're not going to like being dumped in the water. They're not going to like being 12th level characters who might have to dump equipment or something like that to stay afloat. They're not going to like to have an encounter where they're destined to fail. And I think that starts it off with a secondary bad taste of this module. Then when you get to Suthus, if you go through all this other rigmarole that you're being railroaded into, you go to Suthus, this Triton city, to try to continue to find out why things are getting sunk. And there, the onus is on you to get captured. What? I mean, these characters are already going to be pissed off. The last thing that they're going to want to do is to get captured and thrown in cells to be at the mercy of Tritons who are sinking ships. Now, one of the ships being a ship of a princess, which is why you guys were brought in to begin with, who's never mentioned again that I could find. But I think she's the Iridani. But anyway, she's in this, and she's not mentioned again, which is an irritation to me. But once you get captured, then you're introduced to another story arc, which pits two different Tritons against each other, and you kind of have to decide between them to see who they each want you to kill each other. And then once you do that, you're given information which will take you to the raft cities of Kron, which are the war rafts are from. So then you'll leave Suthus, go to Kron, fight a magic user that's taken over the leader of Kron, who's called One Eye. The magic user, actually is a cleric, is named Morak. And then once you defeat Morak, you can see that the Tritons and the people of Kron had gotten into alliance. There's some notes that have been passed back and forth. And they're the ones that have been dealing damage to the shipping. So therefore, you solve the mystery. Great. However, that's not the end of it. There's another section that takes you to the sunken city of Kolhader. I can't, for the life of me, find in this module how you make that connection. How you go from Kron to Kolhader, don't know. I could not find where it was listed. I assume that Morak is a cleric of a Vela, a water vampire who has taken up residence in Kolhader and is really the architect of this whole evil that is spread onto the surface. That makes sense, but there's nothing in the storyline or anything in the arcs that say, hey, you need to go here. So either you can find out that the princess, who is not in the story at all, might have been taken there and put her in the story, and they could go to Kolhader, or Morak or one of his apprentices could tell you about Hardir, the Vela vampire, and then you could go there to finish off the quest, get rid of the evil permanently. That makes sense, but there's nothing that connects Kron to Kolhader that I could find. So you've got to make sure as a DM that you put that connection in. Otherwise, your players will just quit, be done, and you'll miss the last half of the adventure, which is really the dungeon crawl. Again, underwater, annoying, but it is there. There's going to be there's a dragon turtle in there, and there's a were sharks in this. There's a lot of different things. If you like water adventures that you're going to introduce characters to, that's great. But at the end of the day, the story is way too fractured. You're dealing with a heavy water adventure that keeps pushing you in directions that you don't want to go. You can follow that current. I don't know. Anyway, it's not my favorite way to do things. I don't know. I was so thrilled with Bruce's work on Gamma World. I was really surprised to see it kind of fall flat in this one. I'm going to give this one a thumbs down, actually. I don't like this adventure. It's going to take a lot of work to cobble it into AD&D or into an adventure that is going to be worthy of a smooth running, and you're going to have to find ways to not piss your characters off by making sure that they go places, by getting captured or getting their boat sunk, or passing tests that they didn't do. This kind of stuff needs to be taken care of in the beginning and setup of this. So keep that in mind if you're looking to run this particular one. Not my favorite in the basic series, and I think that's really all I've got to say about it. Hopefully you'll take heed of this if you're going to ever run this adventure, or if you're looking for a good adventure in the Sea of Dread, you could use this one, and like I said, you're going to have to do some modifications to it, because I think the base of the storyline is probably good. It just needs a smooth thread to get through, and you can't force players to do certain things. So keep that in mind on these particular keys, and I think you'll be all right. And that's going to be it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Again, please subscribe if you have not, and thanks again for watching. And as always, great gaming.